but the main thing was, what does it cost to have Jon Castelli mix? What do I charge? What do people charge? What do mixers get paid? What are the economics?
Oh, I love this question because nobody talks about this.
Nobody talks about it.
I charge $3,500 a mix plus an $800 studio fee per song, and then anything over 10 songs down to negotiate some sort of deal. Yeah, nobody talks about that. That's where I'm at. That's what I charge.
Yeah, and your impression and my impression is that there's a handful of guys, maybe a dozen, that charge more than that, but also the structures are pretty different, where there's people who charge...
Oh, and a point. Sorry, we should add that.
And a royalty point. We've talked about that a lot, yeah. There are a handful of guys whose names are famous out there that charge either a little bit more or a larger studio fee, which is like a day rate basally for the studio. Some people will charge for revisions. I know you don't do that. I don't do that.
No revision charges, yeah.
And then there's and of course, as with most things in the music industry, that's what you think, but there's revision charges. There's a larger studio fee. Yeah, the reality is it's actually really great that you answered the question that way. But as you know, and as I know, all things are variable and relative. And you don't like to take, you have a philosophical thing where you don't like to do discounted things except for very specific circumstances. You would actually rather say, I'm going to mix a couple of things for free a year.
Yep.
And rather than try to have everything be a devalued negotiation for things. There are, but the truth is that every project is different, and you may be excited about something and want to be involved early on when they don't have money, and you might have a different back end. I mean, certainly I do a lot more of this as a producer and as a writer, where depending on where the project is, if I'm excited to be involved, I may get no money up front and a big pile of money if they get a deal, or I might get a larger royalty, or I might have rights to, I'll do 3 or 4 songs, but I'll have rights to produce a couple of songs on their first major label album or whatever it is. Like, there's lots and lots of ways to do this. There are, like I said, there's a few mixer guys, including guys like Manny and Serban and whatever, that are in that range or a little bit above. But again, the fee structure tends to be different based on the project. Everybody's got kind of a standard thing, and then everybody is flexible based on what they want to do.
What is that? What do people keep asking? What the studio fee means?
What does that mean?
What does it mean? It's the cost to for my assistant and my average time per song that the studio has to flow, a stem printing time that is downtime, or for all different things.
So why not just?
I have to upkeep a studio, so the label can pay for that. You know,
so you're charging.
There's always a studio budget. There's always a record budget.
So I think it's more of an accounting thing than anything else. It's like if you're $3,500 a mix and $600 for studio, why not just charge $4,100 a mix? And I think there's lots of answers for that, but one of them is
that would be $4,300. But yeah,
I don't do math. Well, you give them a discount. $4,300. Thank you.
I heard you have a kill fee too. Ixnay that from anybody's brain. No, there's no kill fee. I don't know
what is the kill fee for people that...
Yeah, kill fee is like if they don't use your mix, they
still have to pay you something.
No, you have to pay for the mix.
So just real quick, the reason why people oftentimes have separate fees... sometimes
don't devalue the work that you put in that someone asked you to do for a kill fee. You did the work, and once they engage you in revisions, once you do notes, like, we're moving forward as if the mix is going to be used. If the song doesn't come out, that's another conversation. Like, if it's not getting used, I still get paid for it, but I can understand why, depending on the circumstances, you might be willing to just be like, don't worry about it. But there's no kill fee. The fee is the fee of the song, and it's agreed upon, and I don't really start until I get the front end. And
well, you're also at that point, and we've talked a bit before, and we may go a little over here, which is fine.
Do I charge studio fees if you're doing it for free? No, it's free.
No. Well, so let me just cover 2 things real quick. One is that I think a lot of people are still in the place where it's like, should I do a spec thing? And the answer is it depends where you are in your career and all these things. You know, John, you've certainly and I have established ourselves to where there's not a lot of spec stuff. I'll do more things in production where I'll take a shot at something because I'm excited about it, and sort of like be like, you should hire me because I can do a better thing. But in mixing, you're past that point in your career. Although occasionally you've done some mixes and they've not went out.
I'll be honest. The only artist I would do a spec mix for, if the A&R hears this, Rihanna.
Yeah.
I'll do anything for Rihanna.
That sounds about right. I'll do anything for Rihanna. That's the quote of the whole thing. So somebody asked in there the 50-50 and recoupable and stuff like that. So that's part of the reason that you have a studio fee separate, at least for some people. I don't know you personally, but having a studio fee separate has nothing to do with your advance or fee as a mixer, which is oftentimes 50% recoupable against royalties. The reason to have a separate studio thing is because historically there are budgets for it. It's part of the accounting that exists in the music industry. Before everybody had their own home studios, you would pay a mixer, but you'd have to pay for the studio as well oftentimes. So a lot of this stuff is
funny.
So a lot of this stuff is more of an accounting thing than anything else. But so when somebody like so-and-so charges $5,000 a mix, and people say that could be they charge $4,000 and $1,000 studio fee, or it's $3,000 and a bunch of revisions, or whatever it is. So it's, if people want to dig into that, there's sort of like accounting and business structure reasons.
Honestly, I didn't realize how hungry people were for this stuff. The comments are blowing up right now with the idea like nobody talks about this. We should talk about this more. I'm completely open. I'm also completely open to negotiating with people. So, but that's where I've positioned myself, and my team has, my managers. Like, this is where we think that we should start at, and that's something that people need to discuss more openly. I don't want to talk about what other people get. I'm not interested in what Manny gets. That's his business. That's his choice. But I'll talk about, my choices and why and how we got there. So we can do another episode talking about this stuff.
I think we should do that, because
there's a lot here. There's a lot here that I have a hard out. I have to go today. So.
That's all good. Yeah. And mine gets really crazy too, because I've produced records and mixed records and mastered records and consulted for a record label as an A&R and managed bands and executive produced and all that. And they're all structured differently, all different ways, all have potentials of royalties, fees, recoupable.
Let's do a chat on this.